Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by BetMGM. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me once again, my co-host Nick Martin. Nick, Final Four of the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs is set. Carolina versus Florida in the East, Vegas versus Dallas in the West. We'll start with Carolina and Florida. That series begins on Thursday night. With game one in Raleigh. Series line, Canes minus 135 right now. Cats coming back plus 115. And the game one line, as you'd expect, is pretty much on the ball there too. Same prices, minus 135 plus 115. Total set at 5.5 right now. The over 5.5 is juiced to minus 120 as it sits. Actually, both game ones are set at 5.5, which is kind of interesting considering where we've been at with totals this season. We talked a little bit on our podcast last night about Carolina and Florida, but let's dive a little bit deeper here. I think the way I'm going to be betting this series is I'll be trying to play Florida from behind in the series, whether they go down 1-0, whether they go down again 2-1, even 3-2. I think that Florida will eventually be able to drag Carolina deep into the series, like into the championship rounds, game 6 and 7. And I just like them more in those situations than I would Carolina, because I think it sounds simple to say, but the goals should come easier for Florida, right? They can kind of rely on the skill and being clinical in the finishing, whereas Carolina needs to work pretty hard, generally speaking. Not as much against the Devils, but generally speaking, they need to work pretty hard to score. So my overall view here in terms of just the series line will be Florida if they fall behind.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that a look I actually like for game one is the over at 5.5. I think I could see this being a little bit like the last two series of round two, where I don't know. I think over 5.5 minus 120 seems like something you just lock in now. Games are a little higher scoring at the start of the series. We've seen it. The refs still call stuff. I think there's some good angles about how this can break open. I still don't think Florida's really defended all that well. We've talked about it a lot. Bobrovsky's been as good as he's ever been in his entire career, but obviously any stretch like that comes with some favorable luck. So I think we could see Carolina cause problems for Florida. I'm still not entirely sure about Freddie Anderson if Florida can get some of their some quality looks going the other way. So I think 5.5 seems like a bit of a low mark. I think probably almost everywhere will be at 6 by game time. So I think that's a solid look to play in game one.
And before we'll dive a little deeper into like series props in a second, but before I do that, I should note that Carolina is your Stanley Cup favorite at the moment, but I mean everybody's between 2-1 and 4-1. Hurricanes plus 200, Knights right behind them plus 225, Stars plus 325, and Panthers, they're the biggest long shot on the board, plus 375. And then Conn Smythe, Jack Eichel is your new Conn Smythe favorite at the moment. Sebastian Aho is right behind him. Eichel's plus 550. Aho 6-1. Then our man Matt Tkachuk, we gave him out a few weeks ago, is a good long shot when the Panthers were down 3-2 to the Bruins, but he's down to plus 750. Freddie Anderson, Rope Hintz at 9-1. Mark Stone 10-1. Bobrovsky 10-1. Ottinger 14. Pavelski 16. Carter Verhaeghe, Martin Necas, and Brent Burns are all between 16 and 22-1, as is Jordan Martinook and Aiden Hill. I'll stop there.
I think there's one really good one there. I think we
Okay.
kind of talked about it. Out of the guys I think we said he had a bit of an edge in round one. I said at least that I wouldn't add Ettinger. I think you can play Hintz at plus 900 for sure. He's got a pretty big lead on that award. I think if Dallas wins, and I like the way Dallas played that series. I think they deserve a lot of credit for Game 7. When I'm looking at this, even if you asked me not considering odds, who I thought would win out of these four teams, I honestly barely have an answer, which I think is pretty lame for like an analyst, but I think it's true. Like I really don't know what to think. I guess I lean Carolina, but I think there's definitely enough of an edge to play Hintz there. It seems like he's got a pretty good case on the Dallas front. He just came through in the biggest game, and he was the clear cut leader before that. So
Yeah, he was
we'll
he was
probably
20 to 1 before Game 7, and you'll be happy to know that myself, the producer of our podcast, Matt Mitchell, and our buddy Steve Petrella threw in a three-leg parlay: Hintz to win the Conn Smythe, Yannick Sinner to win the French Open, and the Brisbane Lions to win the minor premiership in the Australian Football League, which is the team that finishes with the best regular season record, so like the President's Trophy. So that's how I played Hintz, which is definitely going to work out. But yeah, I'd agree with you. I think at this point when you're getting to this stage, like the one team I think where it's up in the air is Carolina. And that's kind of
yeah,
what
and I
I'm.
mean it gets up in the air close. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a chance Ettinger has
Yeah, but
four
I mean, Hintz is
35
leading the
save
whole
points there.
playoffs in scoring
For sure.
for people
I'm
left.
just making the point. Like I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
would
no,
have
I
been
like
interesting.
Andre. Yeah, he could. The one thing I will say though is why I felt kind of safe playing Hintz at before Game 7 in that special way was if you look at like had Dallas drawn Edmonton in the conference final, then Ottinger would have had to have been a story. But against Vegas, it's not as much, right? Like, and same thing if they play Florida or Carolina. It's not like they're taking on an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, and another note too, like you look at that. So Pavelski's 15 to 1. That's giving us a better price on Hintz. I think the gap there is pretty massive right now.
Yeah,
Um, Pavelski just had the really good series, but not only is Hintz producing at the highest level, I think his play looks the most dynamic. He's doing a lot both ways. He's on the penalty kill, causing like just a ruckus everywhere. So
yeah, he's got the hair.
he
Um,
looks sweet. Everything about
yeah,
Hintz is great.
yeah.
So I
Um,
think he's got a good case.
yeah. So the reason I wanted to bring these odds up while we're still talking Carolina and Florida is I think that you can feel pretty confident in if you did bet Matt Kachuk along with me like a couple weeks ago that if the Panthers do win the Stanley Cup, it's either him or Bobrovsky, and it's like
Yeah, I
you
was gonna
said,
say that one's getting
yeah,
close,
but like you said the other day, like it's really hard to imagine Bobrovsky keeping it up. So I feel all right with Kachuk,
but it could
but
be a good series for him to get his stats
that's true
dialed
too.
because we've
That's
seen
true
how
too.
Carolina plays,
Yeah,
and Kachuk really tailed off production wise at the
yeah,
end
yeah.
of that
But he still was
series.
the
So
story. It was hilarious how everybody was just
for
talking about
sure,
him. Um, but
pretty much a two
Carolina,
horse race there.
Carolina to me is interesting. Just excuse me. Carolina to me is pretty interesting from in this market. Because Aho was pretty quiet in the Devils series. I don't think either one of us expects Jordan Martinook to play at the pace we saw from him in the last series. And if you look at their playoff stats right now, Aho's still leading them. He's just under point per game with 10 points. And it's Martinook. Then it's Jesper Fast at 8. Seth Jarvis has 8 points. So does Burns. So does Stahl. Like this team just spreads it all out. So you could get like I don't even see his name on the board. Um, but you could get a huge series from someone like Stefan Nason, for example, right?
I
And
think Sweden.
Slavin's on the board. He's definitely interesting too. So he's 50 to 1 at BetMGM. So like if you see one of these guys in that range, like if you just kind of sort Carolina's scoring in the playoffs and you look in that 6 to 8 point range, of which there's like 10 guys, I think you can cross off some guys like Pesci uh, and use logic because like Jordan Stahl to me could be an interesting one too. given like the way people talk about his two-way game, if he shuts down Kachuk. But yeah, I'm saying all this without giving you a recommended bet, but more a strategy where, like you said, Slavin, a guy like that you want to hitch your wagon to if you want some Carolina futures, I think is totally fine because I don't think Aho should be the favorite on this team, but he shouldn't be so much shorter than everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of looking at it. Slavin's one where you're probably not getting the guys to give the votes, but if you were to think about it on a true basis of if you took him away from the team, how hurt are they? He might be probably one of the last picks. If you ask Rod Brendamore, I bet he'd be probably inside the first two. He'd say he'd never want to lose. But
and then in terms of just series props, I talked about going back to Nick Cousins in the market for most goals in the series. He's 151 out there now. He was 200-1. That Leboff money, the bookmakers they shortened that price real quick when they saw me coming. Anything for you on this one?
Yeah, I've got two. I like Necas to lead from Carolina. He's their second best goal scorer in the regular season. He looked really good versus New Jersey. I think that this series can set up well for him for some of the same reasons it set up well versus New Jersey. Some of the reasons that I think it's set up well versus Nylander in the Toronto series in terms of the matchups he'll get and his ability to skate and create off the wall and in transition. So I think Necas and I like Seth Jarvis. Those would be my two that are Carolina's third and fourth favorites, I think. But regardless, 10-1, 12-1 for each of them. I think those are both very playable. I think
you can get Necas.
There's a really good chance.
You can get Necas and Jarvis at BetMGM, both of them at 12-1. I don't hate those at all. We talked about Kotkaniemi on the last one, kind of being on our short list, and his number was just too short at 22. I think if you're looking for like a more reasonable long shot on Florida, my answer would probably be like Anthony Duclair at 30-1. Sam Bennett, I wish was a little bit longer, but he's only 14. But yeah, I think Carolina, Necas, Jarvis are fine at their number, and we'll see. All right, on to Vegas and Dallas. Vegas is the home team for game one. This series price is -130. The Knights are a slight favorite, so both of these series pretty close to coin flips. And then game one, Vegas is a -135 favorite. Dallas coming back +115. Over under, like I said, is 5.5. Series props are going to start populating pretty soon, but we'll have a pretty good idea of like a short list here. And I'll flip it to you on what you have. I would say I like Dallas. I wish the number was a little longer just because of the goaltending edge, but I think that's in similarly speaking to like in a similar way. Like I think you can probably wait till later in the series to get Dallas at like a better price if it's 2-1 or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the goaltending edge is significant. And this could be the type of series where that really shows through. But Vegas played really, really well versus the Oilers, and they deserve a lot of credit. I really didn't have much as a side when I looked at this. It could be a sneaky good series for as much as people and myself are kind of ragging on it. I bet this will actually be pretty entertaining. And then the one I'll probably be watching to see where some of the goal scores from that night's second line goes. I think they put Nick Waugh with William Karlsson and Riley Smith, and they looked really, really good. I thought they were a good target in game 6 versus Edmonton, and they did pay off on that front. So I'll probably be watching for hopefully a really good number on Karlsson or the other one. I think if Nick Waugh is a super big long shot,
yep.
I don't even know what he has, one goal in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's got one goal, 4 points.
But he's great for them in that one playoff run. He's got some good finish. He spent a lot of time on the fourth line. And the scary thing is I know their lines are pretty interchangeable. They got a lot of guys that could move all over the place. And that Howden-Stevenson unit wasn't really working at the end of the last series. So we'll see. But was one where like if he's crazy long, I think you can take a reasonable punt on that. And then we didn't really talk about Vegas in the Conn Smythe conversation, but theirs is pretty all over the place too.
Yeah,
Like I wouldn't be
yeah.
betting Eichel as the favorite.
I think so. You know what? The reason I don't think it's as wide open right now is because Eichel is coming off a series where he outplayed Connor McDavid. He beat Connor McDavid.
Yeah, but I mean, Marchessault
Yeah, but I
was
just think
right
that's
there
why.
with him, and
So there's so much hype around Eichel's performance because they were 1 and 2 in the draft, and wow, Eichel, he's going through and had the better numbers than McDavid and whatever. So there's so much talk about him right now. But I guess like the general point is it's not crazy to think that he just has a quiet series. He does that, he'll just kind of disappear for a
yeah,
little
like I
while.
don't think he has a big enough edge on like a couple guys and on a very competitive team for that right now, where like you can bet him at that. It's kind
No,
of
you
just
can't. Yeah, it's not the situation where you say like if you're going to bet Vegas to win the Stanley Cup, you might as well just bet Eichel. Uh I would not agree with that. But yeah, he is Joe Kant's my favorite at the moment. The Then it's Stone, and then after that, I mean, the next night on the list is Aiden Hill at 22 to 1. So
I'd
yeah,
rather play like Trangelo than that, and then
yeah,
obviously Mark. So
yeah, Marchessault sitting at 30, Pietrangelo at 66, Stevenson 40. Uh, yeah, Stevenson. I like. We'll see where the numbers open. If Stevenson is in that 22 like Kotkaniemi range, which I don't think he will be, I would play that, even though he's what like shooting something like 40%.
yeah,
In
and that line kind of fell apart a little, but
mm,
small sample size.
yeah,
And that's gonna be one of the really interesting battles of the series is like whose depth guys kind of keep it going, and how does that look?
yeah.
That
Is Michael
could,
Amadio
I
still
think,
going to be the best player in the NHL for the series?
yes. And I do think 1 through 6 Vegas has a considerably better defense core, but I mean it's close. They're both really good.
Uh, one other thing I wanted to note was for this one is I will be looking to play some Jason Robertson props. The guy, at some point, the
I
guy's going to
can't.
score.
Yeah,
But
but you're getting the
I
numbers
know,
from
I
the guy who
know.
scored a zillion
I'm
goals,
talking
and he's
like
like,
I'm talking like two score 2+. He was like 40 to 1 to score a hat trick tonight, and I bet on that. And he almost did. I mean, what he hit a post. He had that backhander. Like on another night,
he did, but I
yeah,
mean, Rope was still longer to score tonight,
it's
and he
crazy.
was
Isn't that
absolutely
nuts?
flying. So I think it's
Yeah,
like if you're going to target that line, the way I keep looking at it is I like that line. They're playing good, and you know Robertson's going to score soon, but it's also like you're really betting into the he's due narrative. I think when you're
yeah.
like looking at it, and
Uh,
the other two are longer goal scorer prices.
what?
But yeah, I mean, if I were to do, I would almost say play the series leader on goals because if he
Yeah,
gets hot, maybe
yeah.
that's kind of the
It just
angle you want.
opens. So actually, there's a couple of players that perhaps you can make an argument for because I think the scoring in the series will be more spread out than just like Hintz, Pavelski, Robertson, and then the Eichel line. So we could see someone kind of come from nowhere. Like you said, Nick Waugh, I think is interesting. And if you're gonna bet like a long shot like that, I would not thumb my nose at Max Domi, who I think's been really good. Whether or not he can, you would need it to be a short series Dallas win. Wyatt Johnston and Dadonov as well. I think those three guys for Dallas would be the ones I'd be looking at long prices. Uh,
Yeah, the thing that scares me on that is the freaking Knights penalty kill, giving too big of an edge to
yeah, to the other
the other
guys.
guy.
Yeah,
And that's hard to hide. That's where because Vegas was really, really sharp at 5-on-5. Like I think that's the reality of it. Game 6, they gave up a lot of shots, but there wasn't that much quality. Um, I mean, when you think about Aiden Hill's performance, yes, it was really good down the stretch of that game, but the first goal, we can't talk about first goal soft, second goal's mid. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's not like he was brilliant. So we'll see. I'm not entirely buying the hype yet, but it'll be quite something if Vegas really does get it done with Aiden Hill in the net.
yeah.
Probably a fair counterbalance to their $115 million salary, though. But, anyways.
Uh, all right, that'll do it. So yeah, for game ones, you like the over in Cats and Canes. I actually think I'll join you on that one. Uh, you're betting on Bobrovsky at this point to just continue to be outrageously good, and I think that's a good look. Stars for me in terms of just series stuff, and I'm gonna wait it out, and I would lean towards Dallas in game one as well. I just think that Ottinger versus Hill will show, so mostly Dallas. Any final thoughts for you before we wrap this
No,
thing up
yeah,
for a few
I
days?
think that's it.
There we go. Yeah, make sure to get those Nick Cousins bets in before the number shortens even further. Uh, and for Nick Martin, I'm Michael Leboff. Thanks for listening to Line Change. Thanks to our sponsors, BetMGM. We will see you in a few days.